Thank you very much, Madam Rajavi. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, this is a very important gathering. It's a very important gathering because it has been said that all it takes for evil to succeed is that good people remain silent. And we have here a hall full of good people, and you have heard from and will hear from good people, intelligent people, who will not remain silent in the face of evil. And so, as Mayor Giuliani said, this evil will not succeed. Back in February, when Egyptians were first beginning to stir, at Friday prayers in Tehran, the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, speaking not in Farsi, but in Arabic, to make sure that he reached and would be understood in Cairo, praised what he called this explosion of sacred anger and warned against U.S. interference in Egypt. He claimed that events in Tahrir Square were a natural extension of the 1979 revolution in Iran. He was obviously not embarrassed that in 2009 he himself had given the orders to put down the uprising in the streets of Tehran that actually began the Arab Spring. Even before the Iranians went into the streets, as you know better than I, the mullahs executed anyone with a connection with Camp Ashraf, where MEK residents are holding out, despite the efforts of Iran and its collaborators within the Iraqi regime to drive them back to Iran or to exterminate them altogether. I've been before you on earlier occasions when we've looked for signs that this country, that our country, my country, the United States, so despised by Ahmadinejad and the mullahs in Tehran, would bestir itself and take some concrete action to do what Ahmadinejad and those who pull his strings most oppose and fear, and that is to remove MEK from the State Department's list of foreign terrorist organizations. And it seems ironic to have to say this afternoon that the main hope for the people of Ashraf now is that the United Nations, an organization that, let's face it, has not covered itself with glory in this struggle, will act through the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, who has at least offered to help the residents of Ashraf get the benefit of the guarantee made to them by a United States General in 2003 that they would have the status of protected persons under the Fourth Geneva Convention. The history of how we got here is known to many of you, but nonetheless bears repeating. In the 1990s, as a goodwill gesture to the regime in Tehran, the government of the U.S. placed the MEK on that list. By all accounts, this was done to help us engage with the regime and perhaps get the regime to behave as a responsible member of the world community. Whether that policy was wise or foolish, there is absolutely no mistaking that it is and has been a complete and dismal failure. The regime has grown only more hostile toward its neighbors, toward the United States, and more repressive and more destructive of its own citizens. In the administration in which I served, unfortunately, the designation was continued, this time out of fear that if MEK were delisted, why, the Iranians would provide weapons, including deadly IEDs, to insurgents in Iraq. Well, of course, that policy, too, was a failure, because the Iranians have been providing IEDs to people in Iraq who are killing American troops all along, and they have never desisted. And so in July of 2010,